All right, so when should a child be evaluated by an endocrinologist for height? No, it's not just if they want to play basketball. The child may be below the 3rd percentile for height. They may be shorter than expected for their family's trend. They may not be growing at the anticipated rate in that they have been falling percentiles, which we'll go over in a little bit. And also the child may have been born small for gestational age and has not reached catch-up growth by the age of 2 to 3. So to start, what is short stature? My husband would tell you it's anything below his height, but that would not be true. So height is a social construct, meaning that society has kind of determined what is a normal height, what is a tall height, and what is a short height. My goal as a pediatric endocrinologist is to make kids a functional height. Functional height is 4'9". That is when you can drive a car, reach cabinets, join the military if you so choose, and go through natural childbirth. It does not necessarily mean that you are the same size as your parents. So this ball graph kind of shows where 68% of the population is, 95% of the population, and 99% of the population. We hope that most children will fall within 2 standard deviations, which is right here, and then where you can see for tall. So, short stature is when you are below the 3rd percentile for height, or if you are -2 standard deviations below the mean. For a boy, this means you are less than 5'4", and for a girl, this is less than 4'11". Idiopathic short stature is defined as less than -2.25 standard deviations below the mean for age. In addition, short stature can also be defined as below -2 standard deviations for mid-parental height. But this is a very big range. So yes, we can do a calculation for both boys and girls, but for boys, this is about a 10 centimeter interval, so plus or minus, and for girls, this is about 9 centimeters. This also doesn't take into account the child's medical history or if they have any genetic syndromes, which could also cause them to be below or above the mid-parental height. And now the biggest thing that I always need during appointments are growth charts. So growth charts can determine whether a child is falling below where we expect them to be or above. For anyone who is over the age of 2, we use the CDC growth charts. These were released in 2000, and they include a more ethnically diverse population and more breastfed infants. Data from this was derived from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. So as you can see, there's different ones for both boy, which is in blue, and girl, which is in pink. In addition, it's really important to make sure we're choosing the right growth charts to evaluate our patients. The WHO should be used for anyone who is less than 2, so it goes from 0 to 24 months, and then switch to the CDC one. If you're using Epic like we do in our office, that is in the little box that you can see in the corner that you can choose which growth chart to use. In addition, there are different growth charts for different genetic syndromes, such as Down syndrome. You can plot these children on their own plot because they may not follow a regular CDC boy or girl's curve. They're going to follow their own curve, and it is important to put them on those curves. Other syndromes that have their own curves include Turner syndrome and Williams syndrome. So back to our curves. We like children to follow their own curves. I don't want someone going from the 25th percentile down to the 10th, down to the 3rd. I want the child to follow that 25th percentile throughout their life. And if they're falling, that is something that does need to be evaluated to make sure that they're not going to fall further and further down. In addition, linear growth doesn't occur just stably, like you're going to see a little bit every single time. Kids will grow at different rates at different times. So they might have a big growth spurt, and then they might not grow for another month, and then they'll grow really quickly another time. Height velocity is not steady. It kind of waxes and wanes, which is why it's so important not to do a height velocity within a month. You really have to wait that 3 to 6 months, and preferably 6 months, to really get a true height velocity.